After a long, mostly cold spring, summer is finally here. I'm Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett. Welcome to this special edition Summer Weather Newscast. We've got your wildfire outlook and hacks to help you stay cool when those heat waves hit. First up, meteorologist Adam Claiborne has your long-range forecast and what you can expect weather-wise this summer.
So we're getting ready to head into the summer season, and the big talk in the weather world has been the arrival of El Nino. Climate Prediction Center even releasing an El Nino advisory. So what exactly does that mean? How is that going to impact us here as we head throughout the summer months? We're going to talk a little bit about that, maybe even have a little bit of an insight to what possibly could be down the line as we head later into the year as well. First, big picture, you can see the colors showing up. The blues out over the Pacific Ocean, well, that's where we have cooler than normal sea surface temperatures. The yellows, the oranges, and some of the reds down here closer to the equator, that is where we have sea surface temperatures that are now warmer than normal. And as a matter of fact, what we keep an eye out for here down closer to the equator is for those sea surface temperatures to warm and cool, and that gives us an idea of what's happening as far as La Nina or El Nino conditions. And now with us beginning to cross over that 0.5 degree Celsius threshold, we're in El Nino conditions right now. And what that usually means for us is that we see warmer than normal conditions as well as drier than normal conditions here across the Pacific Northwest. Okay, big point of reference right here. Past few years, we've been talking about La Nina, and that usually brings us a highly amplified jet stream, those big ridges, those big dips in the jet stream. El Nino, actually the opposite. We have a less amplified jet stream. Comes from more west to east. We get more of that zonal flow, and at that time too we usually start to see the subtropical jet stream. Yeah, there are more than one jet stream here across our world. That starts to get ramped up, and a lot of the precipitation stays farther south here across the country, meaning we start to dry out to a certain degree here across the Pacific Northwest, which of course during this time of the year we don't want to see things too dry. Of course there are fire concerns with that. And as we go deeper on into the year, just in general too, you get that air mass off of more of the water as opposed to off of the land. It's actually warmer than normal as we head on into that time, into that fall and that winter season. So just something to keep in mind. But let's talk a little bit more again with what this particular El Nino is doing. So it's a weak El Nino, meaning we've just crossed over that 0.5 degree Celsius threshold. It is expected to strengthen. 56% chance that it could become a strong El Nino, meaning we get those sea surface temperature anomalies at 1.5 degrees Celsius and higher. And then there's an 84% chance of it being a moderate El Nino, meaning that range would be between about 1 degree Celsius and 1.4 degrees Celsius. Now, I did want to stress this, that even though we see a lot of the trends of conditions being warmer and drier than normal with El Ninos, it's not a guarantee that that's what's going to happen. But we do have a lot of strong indicators right here. First, let's take a look at the spaghetti plot that you see right here. You can see the models, a lot of the runs showing that those sea surface temperatures out over the equatorial Pacific are going to keep on warming towards the end of the year. There's that 1.5 degree Celsius line right there, and you can see those runs and the models kind of converge on that being the case here. As we go deeper into the year, another pretty strong indicator, this Climate Prediction Center's probabilistic end zone outlook. Everywhere that you see red, that's where you have the El Ninos outlook. The grays, well, neutral conditions expected, or the blues would be La Nina. You don't see any blue at all. You see very little of the gray, and what you see pretty much all of is the red, and that is all above that 80 percentile. Plus you see at the bottom right here all those different letters, the SON, the OND, September, October, November, December, just the 3-month time frame of those El Nino conditions. So yeah, we've been drier here recently, and what we are looking for as we head on into this upcoming season is that, well, we had to keep an eye out for some of that dry vegetation, those fuels for some of those fires to feed off of. And, well, we now technically have drought conditions here across parts of northern interior, the San Juan Islands, and the tip of the Olympic Peninsula. Not technically drought in the yellow areas, but abnormally dry soil. And recently, yes, we've been getting a little more moisture, a little more precipitation up into some of these parts, but we're definitely starved. Another indicator of just how dry it's been is where our snowpack is, and you can see all of that across the Pacific Northwest, a lot of red showing up, meaning that our snowpack is less than 50% of where it should be for this time of the year. And, well, you can probably already understand farther south, a lot more of the blues, they had a lot of heavy and really impactful weather farther across California, Utah, heading into Colorado. Their snowpack doing pretty good, but of course we've been drying out here, and so yeah, snowpack not up there to keep the moisture in the soil. But as we go on here into the rest of the month of June, we should maybe get a little bit of a break from those fire conditions really coming on too early. It's expected here on into the latter part of June that precipitation will be above normal. So that will help us out here into the summer. And as far as temperatures, well, they might be near or maybe just slightly above average. I think we'll take that for sure, as we'll see that those conditions will be cooler than normal as you go farther south here across the Pacific Northwest, getting more into Oregon and maybe into the southern parts of Idaho. But as we go deeper on into the season, here we are looking at the dates between the 10th and the 17th of July. The long range models, this is the European, indicates things, do start to crank up here as far as the heat across the Pacific Northwest. GFS not quite as bullish on that, but we do have some yellows and some oranges even popping up here across parts of the Pacific Northwest. So indicating again, same time frame, the 10th through the 17th of July, that we could start to see things warm up just a bit more. So when we take all of that in consideration, we look at all the different model data. Here we go. The months between June, July, and August, climatological summer, this is what we're expecting, that conditions will be above average as far as temperatures. So they are going to be warmer than normal, and hopefully that doesn't mean that we're dealing with a bunch of fire concerns, because we're also expected to be through that same time frame below normal when it comes to our precipitation. As we go throughout the next few days, we'll keep an eye on the moisture for you. Of course, hopefully that rain comes in and we'll start to quench a little bit of the dry soil that we have in place. But yeah, overall, what we're expecting here as we go throughout the months of June, July, and August, that summer is going to be quite a warm one. Back to you, Mike.
The effects of climate change mean Washington's summers are getting hotter and drier. Over the last couple of years, we've seen quite a few record breakers as a result. Meteorologist Leah Pizzetti takes a look back at some of Seattle's most notable summer weather events.
Seattle may be known for its perfect summer weather, but we've hit some pretty intense records along the way, from scorching heat to long and dry stretches. And as the impacts of climate change worsen, experts say we can expect to experience this extreme summer weather more often. The hottest day on record at SeaTac Airport was June 28, 2021, when we hit 108 degrees. That summer also had the most 100-degree days, with 3 total. Heat is actually the #1 weather-related killer in the United States, and Washington felt those impacts. According to the Department of Health, 157 people died from heat-related causes in 2021. 64% of those deaths happened during the June heat dome. 2022 was also a record breaker. We had the most 90-degree days, with 13 recorded, and 6 straight days in the 90s, which was the most consecutive 90-degree days. Our hottest summer on record was in 2015, when we had an average high temperature of about 80 degrees. 2015 was also Washington's worst wildfire season, when more than 1 million acres burned. On the flip side, Seattle's coldest summer was in 1957, when mean high temperatures were about 67 degrees. Seattle's longest dry stretch was in 2017, when we didn't see rain for 55 straight days. However, 2017 was not our driest summer. That happened in 1987, when we saw just 0.8 of an inch of rain. Seattle's wettest summer was in 1968. Nearly 8.5 inches of rain fell from June through August. And that is a look at some of the biggest Seattle summer extremes so far. For King 5 News, I'm meteorologist Leah Pizzetti.
Fire crews are bracing for hot, dry weather that'll fuel wildfires this summer. The State Department of Natural Resources reports wildfires on DNR land are already up over 150% from last year, and the number of acres burned are up over 4,000%. Meteorologist Christopher Nunley has more on how Washington's wildfire season is shaping up.
As we move into the summer season, the focus shifts towards warmer weather and drier conditions. Now, with the drier weather, the lack of precipitation and those hotter temperatures, we noticed an increased fire danger across western Washington. Now, fire season typically is from July throughout August into September, but we can see fires outside of that fire season that ranges from July through September. We've already noticed a big uptick in fires so far this year compared to the same time last year. Take a look at the numbers. This is as of May 31st. We've already noticed 22 wildfires across the state of Washington. This is up over 150% compared to the same time last year. Now, take a look at the acreage burned. This is a huge increase compared to last year. Keep in mind, last year was pretty wet and cool for the first half of the year, but we're noticing over a 4,000% increase in the acres burned this year compared to last year. 4 fires were started by lightning and the others either human-induced or undetermined at this time. A big reason for the increase in the fires so far this year is the lack of precipitation. This is the latest drought monitor that was released on June 15th. Notice all the yellow shaded areas from the Cascades to the coast, pretty much the entire King 5 viewing area, running abnormally dry. The tan shaded areas, or that light brown color, indicates a moderate drought. Moderate drought conditions as of June 15th extend from the north coast into the northwest interior, extending into the northern Washington Cascades, and then backing down into the central Cascades of Washington. And you can see that creeps into parts of Snohomish, King, and Pierce counties. This is where we have those moderate drought conditions due to the lack of precipitation for the year. Many areas are running about 4 to 9 inches of rainfall below normal for 2023. So far, we're only halfway through the year. Take a look at the numbers. This is from January 1st until June 15th. You can see how much rain has fallen. This is that middle column. This is how much rain or precipitation has fallen for the year so far. And this right column is actually the departure from normal. So Bellingham is nearly 9 inches of rainfall below normal for the year. Olympia, just over 7 inches of precipitation below normal for the year. And then SeaTac running over 6 inches, over half a foot of rain below normal for 2023 so far. Now, moving forward, that does not bode well for the fire season. And because of that, the outlook for July, August, September, not looking good. This is the significant wildland fire potential outlook for the month of July. This red color that you see across all of Washington and parts of the Pacific and even the inland Northwest indicates an above normal fire season expected for Washington. So we are expecting, unfortunately, for the month of July, an increased risk for those fires, likely to be above normal. And that's going to continue into not only the month of July, but moving into August as well. You can see those same colors are highlighted in that red color, which again indicates above normal chances for, unfortunately, those wildfires. And that's going to stick around into the month of September as well. And a big reason for that is because the outlook favors the dry conditions that we've seen to continue with above average temperatures as well, and that will increase that fire danger not only for the end of June, but as we move forward through the summer months of July, August, and September.
Another side effect of increasing wildfires: smoke. Hazy skies have become the new norm during Seattle summers, and the Washington Department of Health is already warning people to expect more smoke this year. Senior meteorologist Rich Marriott explains how it could affect our air quality.
As our climate changes, record-setting wildfires are becoming a regular part of our summers. Every year, more and more wildlands burn.
But as destructive as wildfires are, the smoke they produce can have even more far-reaching effects. Wildfire smoke pollution can travel hundreds, even thousands of miles, impacting the air quality for millions. Unhealthy air can have significant effects on people's lives and health. The main component of wildfire smoke is soot particles from burning plant fiber. These particles are tiny, about 30 times smaller than the width of a human hair and smaller than a red blood cell. Other common particle pollutants like dust and pollen are much larger. When they're inhaled, most of these particles are trapped in your nose and sinuses and don't make it into your lungs. But wildfire smoke particles are so tiny that when you breathe them, they escape your body's defenses and penetrate deep into your lungs and even into your bloodstream. Once inside your body, they can make you cough, cause shortness of breath, and cause headaches. Wildfire smoke particles can make existing heart and lung conditions worse. Because of the risk to people when wildfire smoke is dense, the Environmental Protection Agency has developed an air quality scale that measures how hazardous wood smoke pollution may be. It's called the Air Quality Index, or AQI. AQI is designed so the greater the index, the greater the risk to your health. For wood smoke, the scale runs from 0 to 500. Less than 50 AQI is considered acceptable and poses little or no risk. AQI values of 50 to 100 are generally not hazardous to healthy people. As the AQI increases, though, to each level, the possible health impacts increase, especially for people with underlying health problems. For a day last October, Puget Sound had the worst air quality in the world, measuring an AQI of 326. This is considered very unhealthy air quality, and there's an increased health risk for everyone. But this spring, wildfire smoke from Quebec, Canada, blanketed the northeastern U.S., briefly giving New York City the world's worst air quality. Manhattan checked in with an AQI of 437. This is considered hazardous for everyone. Air quality agencies monitor the level of particle pollution to determine the current AQI. They also use computer models to predict where the smoke will go and how thick it will be. They can predict what the AQI will be today, tomorrow, and beyond. This can let you plan your activities just like a weather forecast.
Overall problems with wildfire smoke are getting worse and more frequent, and there's no getting away from it. A recent Stanford University study showed that 60% of people who are exposed to wildfire smoke annually live in states with no significant wildfires.
Higher temperatures are raising concerns in Washington's classrooms. The state's largest school district has more than 100 buildings. Seattle Public Schools say less than half of those are equipped with air conditioning. King 5's Natalie Swaby reports other districts are dealing with a lack of AC as well, and it has some teachers calling on the state to come up with a plan.
Teachers are putting classroom temperatures on display.
We started getting flooded with messages from educators that their classrooms, even in the morning, were already, like at 9 a.m., already in the 70s.
Teachers reported 81 degrees in one classroom, 84 in another. One room even reached 96 degrees, according to Federal Way Education Association President Shannon McCann.
It's sweltering. It's sweltering inside.
She says normally mid-60s is considered comfortable in the classroom.
We didn't expect to be, nearly 90 degrees in May. We're just not prepared for this.
McCann says they're pulling the blinds down and turning fans up, but it's still hot.
It's so hot. And students are having a difficult time concentrating. But unfortunately, we even had students that were getting sick with heat-related symptoms and going home early or going to the nurse's office several times.
I've reached out to the governor's office. I've also reached out to the emergency management division.
State Representative Christine Reeves did that after hearing directly from teachers. She says she's concerned about the lack of air conditioning in school buildings, as well as the current state law.
We have provisions in state law for measures for schools to shut down when the weather gets too cold, but we don't currently have any provisions in state law for schools to shut down and for administrators to make those decisions when the weather gets too hot.
As for what's happening right now, McCann says the heat is creating an extra hurdle.
Right now, we have standardized testing, which is always a stressful time of year.
Hot weather puts air conditioning on the list of must-haves for some home buyers. King 5's Cornelius Hawker talks to realtors and confirms summer weather has a direct impact on home purchases.
I talked to two realtors who say on these scorching days, home buyers want to know about air conditioning.
A realtor for 3 years, Samantha Mountain is used to answering a lot of questions from buyers. But when the weather heats up, there's one thing they all want to know.
Usually, if it's a well air-conditioned home, that's a big breath of fresh air.
Data from the U.S. Census estimates around 44% of homes in Seattle are air-conditioned, a trend seen throughout the Pacific Northwest.
In the Pacific Northwest as a whole, you'll find homes of a certain age are not going to come with air conditioning.
But when it comes to newer homes being built,
new builds are catching up with the idea that heating and cooling are extremely important here in Seattle.
I think having AC is a great benefit. And a lot of the new construction now, I think all of it, frankly, is planning for that.
Jennifer Sumnick, a realtor for 19 years, would hardly ever be asked about air conditioning early on in her career. And when she was,
and I would say, well, you could just open your window at night and things really cool down most days. There's usually a couple of days a year where it was that warm, and that's how it seemed at first.
But now she'd never give that advice, knowing hot weather days have become the new normal.
Now it seems that a lot of more new construction has air conditioning because, we kind of need it now. We do need it.
If you're looking for ways to cool off and planning to hit the beach this summer, you could come across closures more frequently. King 5's Erica Zucco shows us King County's newest methods to test for bacteria and keep beachgoers safe.
Public Health of Seattle and King County is dipping its toes into new protocols as summer takes off. Wildlife and pets doing their business, and people who haven't showered before swimming can leave germs behind, fueling waters with bacteria. When those levels get too high, public health makes the call to close beaches. In the past, the previous 2 weeks of collections guided decisions. This year, a new formula will more heavily weight data collected most recently.
There may be more beach closures, but each closure will be shorter than before.
To prevent closures, they ask you don't feed geese or ducks. They recommend showering before swimming, and they say to make sure babies and toddlers wear swim diapers. Here's how to see how much bacteria is at your favorite beach. Visit King County's website and you can view a map of beaches. An X means there's a closure. You can also view specific current bacteria counts and temperature levels at each location. According to the website, more than 320 bacteria in a 100 milliliter water sample is considered high.
What's good about this new protocol is that we will be responding more quickly to higher levels of bacteria in the beach water, and we will be closing the beach when we should, and we will be reopening the beach when we should.
We're all trying to stay cool these days, but are your tried and true methods really getting the job done? Brandon Lewis from our National Verify team looks into how to stay cool without breaking the bank.
The dog days of summer are here, and so too are high utility bills. Many Verify viewers reached out with questions about ways they've heard to beat the heat. So we looked into whether they actually work. First up, will closing your blinds help keep your home cooler? So let's verify. Our sources are the U.S. Department of Energy and Lowe's. When sunlight hits double-pane windows with the blinds open, the DOE says about 76% of it turns into heat. You can help lower that number by closing the blinds. Lowe's recommends using a white blind or shade because it will help deflect more heat. The DOE says the exact percentage saved also depends on the material of your blinds. For example, an insulated shade could reduce unwanted heat by up to 60%, while using just a white curtain will help reduce the heat by a third. So, yes, closing your blinds will help keep your home cooler. All right, next up is a question I frequently ask myself when heading to work. Does turning off the AC at home when I leave for the day save money? Admittedly, the answer to this question has a lot of variables, like where you live and how hot it is outside. Generally, our energy experts recommend leaving the air on during the day. Just turn it up a few degrees. Duke Energy explains you'll use less energy keeping your home at a modest temperature throughout the day, rather than blasting the AC when you get home to try and cool the house. Nebraska's Southwest Public Power District notes turning off your AC could cause your refrigerator to work extra hard to keep food cold, which would negate any savings from turning off the air. Plus, humidity levels may increase, leading to mold, mildew, and causing damage to electronics. So, no, in general, turning off the AC when leaving for the day does not save money. This brings us to our final question about staying cool. So, let's verify. Is there a right temperature to maximize savings? The DOE and Energy Star say setting the AC to 78 degrees is the ideal temperature to maximize savings when you're home. This is about 10% cheaper than setting it at 74 degrees. If you live in an especially warm area, then HVAC technicians recommend setting your AC 20 degrees cooler than the outdoor temperature to avoid straining your air conditioning. So, yes, there is a right temperature to maximize savings. We hope these tips help save you a bit of money this summer. We feature even more of your questions about staying cool on verifythis.com. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
But what if you don't have AC? Well, King 5's Jake Wittenberg shows us how to make your own DIY air conditioner.
All right, we need to find ways to cool off in these temperatures, don't we? I've got a pretty ingenious way of making a portable air conditioner for less than $15. It may just be one trip to the store, too. Check this out.
You really only need 3 things. Find a cooler, maybe it's a styrofoam cooler just laying around. I found this compostable one for $10, which was a good find. You need 2 dryer vents. I got these at a hardware store for $2 a piece. And you'll need a small fan. Use one that you already have, or if you can find one, they're not that expensive. Now grab your cooler and trace a line to cut a hole for a dryer vent on the side. Remember to always slice away from your body, and once you've got that hole cut, fit a dryer vent inside. Now do the same thing for the other side of the cooler. Next up is the fan. Time to cut a hole for that on top.
And you want to make sure that you're cutting this hole for the fan just a little bit smaller than the actual size of the fan itself so that it doesn't fall through into the cooler. Now before you put on the lid in the fan, you've got to make the inside of the cooler cold, right? I just grabbed whatever ice pack I could find, stuff it inside your cooler. You could even use frozen food, make sure that doesn't go to waste. You've got to make it cold. Now, time to put on the fan.
The air should flow out of the dryer vents. It's actually really cold, and it can get colder depending on how much ice or ice packs you put in your cooler. Obviously, the fan will work for some breeze, but when you need to cool down with these really hot temperatures, you might want to try this. Jake Wittenberg, King 5 News.
Now, I'm not a pulmonologist, I'm a meteorologist, but I do know this. When it gets smoky outside, it may be harder to breathe. Health experts tell us that the particles in smoke can irritate your eyes and lungs. It's especially dangerous for people with heart or lung disease, older adults, and children. People are urged to wear N95 masks outside, keep doors and windows closed, and use an air cleaning system. Here's some valuable information: how to make your own air filter to reduce smoke levels inside your home.
If you don't have one of those fancy indoor air filters, you can make one for about $20. All you need is one of these furnace air filters you'd get from the hardware store, and then just a regular box fan. When you go to buy one of these, look for one of two things, either MERV 13 or FPR 10. These are pretty much the best indoor air filters that you can buy. They will scrub the most particles out of the air. It costs about $20 for one of these. What you'll do is take your box fan, line up the air filter behind the box fan, and then just use some regular tape, any kind of tape works, to attach the filter to the back of the box fan. And if it doesn't fit perfectly, if there are, like on this one, a few gaps along there, they say that's okay. It'll still be very effective even if it's not a perfect fit. You take this, you put it inside an enclosed room. A smaller room is best. Make sure the windows and doors are closed, and then just turn it on. It's pulling dirty air through this side and pushing much cleaner air out the front. The experts at Puget Sound Clean Air did some tests with this setup, and you can see there where they turned on the fan, the levels of black carbon dropped significantly and continued dropping for hours. They did those tests during a summer wildfire season when there was a lot of smoke in the air. This is a before and after photo. The filter on the left, you can see just how dirty it is after it's been scrubbing the air compared to the new filter on the right. This is something you can put together very quickly, and once it's all set up and turned on, you should notice some relief within hours.
Hot weather can be a huge stressor on your garden, especially water and shade-loving species. Gardening expert Cisco Morris shows tips to keep your plants happy during and after a heat wave.
Number one thing, if you hear a heat wave is coming, you want to water. Now, I do a lot of hand watering at my house with a nozzle, but you gotta water early in the morning and deeply. So get up at 5 in the morning and get your sprinklers out and make sure that you water for a good long time. That's gonna make a big difference. Water early in the morning because you want lots of moisture to be in the garden as the heat goes up. Now, what do you do once your plants have been damaged? Well, you know, in a case like this with a perennial, this is Rogerzia, I already see new leaves are coming up in here. I don't want to live with something this ugly in front of my house. So I'm going to go ahead and take the risk and cut the stuff that looks terrible down here. Already it looks better than it did. A little thin, but so that's one thing you can do with perennials. So you probably have noticed brown needles on big Doug firs, hemlocks, and a lot of your dwarf conifers. If the needles that die are out on the growth point, that's not good. But I think next spring, as long as most of the needles are okay, you'll be able to cut it back beyond that. Don't do anything till next spring. It's not going to help it to cut them now. Now, on the big hemlocks and Doug firs, there's no way to say if it's going to cause lasting harm. We're just going to have to wait and find out. Some small-leaved rhododendrons like full sun, but they don't like heat waves. So if you've got an old umbrella, I bought this in Japan, advertised as the smallest umbrella on earth. That does a lot of good. Oh la la. But hey, it will come in handy to save this plant. So if you hear a heat wave is coming, get that umbrella on your plant. It probably will save its life. Look what the sun did to my prize Makawa Yatsubusa Japanese maple. All that burning. Now, I know the temptation is to cut all this stuff off, but don't do it because it's helping protect the leaves behind it from the sun and heat. But if you hear another big heat wave is coming, you need to cover it. And this calls for the big umbrella. So if you've got a big old umbrella you're not using, that could save the life of your prized Japanese maple.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett. Stay classy, keep in touch, and have a great, safe summer. And stay cool. We'll see you next time.